The number one question I get on this channel is, should I buy insert controller here? And the answer is, I'm not going to tell you. We're going to be talking about all that and more, but first, coffee. Alright, so today's coffee is a Malawi Misk AA. It's a fairly dark roast, and for some reason the beans look kind of wet. I don't know if that's because I put the beans in the fridge. Anyway, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because this question gets asked a lot, and I don't have a place to send people when they ask me this question. What I really want to do is when they show up on stream and ask this question, which I think is a fair question, they say, is this Quamba Obsidian worth it? Is the drone or the Hori RAP arcade stick worth it? Should I buy the Nikon Daija, or should I buy the Mayflash F300? And it's basically quite a big, important question, but it's not something that I can answer on stream every time someone asks it. Even though I kind of want to, but I also kind of can't, and there's many reasons why I just don't. Let's grind! The first reason why I don't want to answer this question all the time is because really I just don't want to be the person telling you buy this stick or buy that stick, because inevitably you're going to get that stick and discover something about it that you don't like or something that doesn't work for you, because basically none of these products, none of anything that I have ever shown on the channel is completely perfect. And so I don't want to be in a position where I said, go and buy this thing when it's not actually perfect. And I feel like that basically there will never be a stick that is perfect that I can say, go and buy it. What I can do, and what I prefer to do, is get these things out of the box, test them, give my opinions, and let you decide for yourself. This is a very common thing on YouTube. It's like, listen, I'm gonna tell you this product is really good, but in the end, almost all the videos have to end with, you have to decide for yourself, because inevitably, basically, these products aren't good and bad. They're all just on a sliding scale. It's this stick is really good, but it is kind of expensive. But for other people, $200 is not expensive. So it's this stick is good, but you could afford to spend more and get a stick that actually does a few more of the things that you want. I don't know, having a removable lever or made with more premium parts or something. So that's reason number one. I just ultimately don't think that I could ever really tell you to buy something, because I don't really think that any of the products that come into the channel are perfect. But the second reason is that these products are good for you depending on your situation, really. And I feel for some people who have a job, they've bought a car, they've bought a house, they have a family, spending $350 instead of spending $200 on a stick ultimately makes no difference. It makes absolutely no difference to a large number of people who have an income. But for a completely different group, there are people who are only able to spend the money that they receive from their parents, their pocket money, their allowance. And for those people, let's say that they're getting something I don't know, $5 a week or $10 or a month or whatever it is. It might take them a year to save up $100. It may take them a year to save up $200. And if they buy the wrong stick, that's going to be another year of waiting before they can go and buy something like that again. And so when people ask me the question is the Hori RAP worth $170? It's well, I don't know. Do you have $170? How fast can you make $170 is the really big question. Now, I don't know what minimum wage is at the moment. If you have a full-time job and you're working at minimum wage, you could get yourself between $60 and $100 in a day. But at the same time, if you're in a situation where you're paying your own rent, you're paying your own water bills, you're paying your own electric bills, wow, it's suddenly getting really bright outside, then even if you make $100 a day, you may end up spending $120. And so you're actually minus $20, and you really do not have money to be spending on an arcade stick. So essentially, that's reason number two. I don't know your situation. You might be rich, you might be poor, you might be rich, but you still have to spend all that money on things that you would rather not be spending the money on, and so you don't have the spare, disposable income to spend on video game controllers. Essentially, I just don't know how much money you have to spend. Alright, so the third reason why I don't really like to straight up say, yes, that stick is good, or that stick is bad. I mean, I've actually made a video about why I don't use those terms, good and bad, because I mean, basically there's a whole video about it, but I don't find those terms to be particularly helpful. Even if you say something's good or you say something's bad, someone can still walk away with like feeling like they still don't really know whether they should buy that product or not. But apart from just not wanting to use those words, I feel like another main thing that I don't like is the amount of importance that's placed on the opinions of influencers. And when I'm saying influencers, I'm talking about people who make YouTube videos, people who have over 10,000 or maybe over 20,000 followers on Twitter, people who have a certain amount of influence over others. I feel like it's kind of a shame that it has ended up this way, but it kind of couldn't really be avoided. Essentially, if you spend the money to buy something that other people aren't ready to spend the money to buy yet, then your voice just becomes louder than other people's. And that's something that we're still trying to work out with the internet, because everyone in a way has the potential to have the same volume of voice on the internet using just a website or Twitter or a social networking system. They've all got this access to the same megaphone, but over time, you just build more and more influence to the point that I think it can actually become kind of dangerous, where even though it's just your opinion, you don't like a certain product or you don't like a certain game, then other people will just blindly believe what you said about it, and then they won't give that product a chance, when in fact, it could have been the perfect product for them. They'll never know, and it's just too late because they watched some influencer who has been, reviewing arcade sticks for a long time, or been playing a certain type of video game for a long time, or has been watching certain movies for a long time. And I feel like this is really dangerous because for a large company that sells arcade sticks in a shop, for example, if people decide, okay, well, I watched so-and-so influencer and they decided, they said not to buy this arcade stick, so I'm not going to an extent, that product is still in the shops and people are still going to buy it because there are a large number of people who see the product anyway and see the advertising and will not be as affected by the influencer's video, because large companies can also afford to pay for advertising. But for example, let's talk about products that have been coming into the channel lately from smaller companies. So things like, I got the arcade stick from the Empress arcade stick from Paradise Arcade. I got the Snackbox Micro came in. I've got other stuff coming from companies that are larger and smaller. But for example, let's say that just per chance I didn't like either of those arcade sticks. Because of the way I like to run my channel, I'll always be honest. I'll still say whether I don't like things, or I'll say like, this didn't really work out well for me, or this is not exactly how I'd like it. I think this should change. And you can actually go and watch my videos that I've made, and that's actually what I say in the video. But I don't like to say, like at the end of the video, this product is not worth the money, don't go and buy it. Because ultimately, like I said in points 1 and 2, that won't be true for a lot of people. A lot of people will go, you know what, even though you don't like this about the product, the fact that it is made of acrylic and looks really cool, or maybe the fact that it is really small and light, I like that enough that I'm willing to pay a $100 premium or $200 premium to get it. But let's say that I did decide to just give my opinion at the end, in addition to saying, no, don't buy this product, or don't even try this product. A large majority of people will take that advice without ever giving the product a shot themselves. And that's difficult to deal with because some companies don't have the buying and influence power for marketing that the larger companies do. And so what I'm trying to say is, as an influencer, you totally have the ability to shut down a company and really put them out of business unfairly, just because you weren't really thinking that hard that day when you made your video. And that's a type of responsibility that I think influencers are still trying to come to terms with, like, as the internet is growing. All right, time to taste some of this Malawi Misk AA. Ooh, it's dark. It's like the petrol tank of a submarine. So when it comes to reviewing products or unboxing them or just testing them in general, I feel like we're in a very imbalanced position right now where influencers, I don't want to say they have too much power, but I feel like society places too much importance on the opinions of people who have influence. And it kind of worries me that people might blindly listen to the end of my video only and go, okay, NihongoGamer said, buy this thing, it's great, so I bought it. There are so many things that could happen after it. They could discover that actually the product doesn't work for them, or the thing that they actually wanted was some other feature. Like they don't want customizability, they want light and ease of carrying it and portability. Or for example, like when I found like there were certain elements of D-pads on controllers that I didn't like, there were plenty of people who tried out that D-pad themselves and they liked it. They found like they didn't have any issue at all. So what seemed to me like a fundamental issue of the D-pad is for some other people a non-issue. And I have seen enough of those cases that I reached a point where I was like, you know what? I don't want to end any videos saying, yes, this works and you should buy it, or no, this is flawed, don't buy it. Because every video I've watched of anyone who's reviewed a video game or reviewed a product, I have had plenty of disagreements myself, gone and bought that same product and discovered it was absolutely fine and worked for me. Now, I think one of the big ones that I want to talk about in terms of products, like should you buy this stick or should you buy this fighting game? Should I play Guilty Gear Strive? Should I play Street Fighter V? Should I play BlazBlue Cross Tag? And depending on your personality, you'll find a lot of people saying like, don't play this game. It is so simplified that if you play a fighting game, other fighting games later, you will have no idea what's going on. But on the flip side, there are just as many people who they try the game that's really, really simple. And so they had access to the more deeper gameplay aspects, like the fact that there's mind games going on between the two human players. And so they actually were able to move, because of the simplicity, they were able to move on to the more complex fighting games and really enjoy them. Clearly, both opinions are fine. Accessibility in games is good. Accessibility in games is bad. Clearly, either of them are fine, but the problem is influence. It's scary to hear a person with a large amount of influence complain and say that a certain game is flawed or just doomed, right? Because actually, because of the way that influencers work, because of the way that YouTube has become, if you say something is doomed and going to fail, you can also become what they call a self-fulfilling prophecy. I made the game fail by telling everyone it's doomed. There's no hope for this game. It's just so fundamentally wrong. And it doesn't have to be that way because I can't think of any fighting game that is so flawed and bad that people aren't able to enjoy playing it at all. Like it's just like the magic of fighting games that the worse the game becomes, the funnier and more insane it is to play. And if you go back to the old days where you went to the arcades or you got a game you rented from Blockbusters or from the supermarket, and it was just so hilariously bad that you had a better time as a result of it, like, I don't know, for me, a very simple one is I really enjoyed Clay Fighter 2. But watching videos now, like I start to see all the flaws that were in the game. It's just like, okay, well, the animation wasn't so good here, and the gameplay wasn't that smooth, and they were having issues with it. It's such a shame that this version of the game wasn't as good as that version of the game. When I think back on my own memories, though, all I remember is just loving Clay Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo and thinking, this is just brilliant. Now, back in the days of the Super Nintendo, it didn't really matter what people said about the game because really the only people who had influence were the magazines. And actually, even the magazines had a lot of influence. So if they gave a game like a 5 out of 10, it's like, okay, that could massively affect sales. But these days, like access to a microphone or what I like to call a megaphone, an internet megaphone, it's so easy to just not really understand a game and then give your opinion on it and then cause the game to actually fail because your influence is so strong. And yes, in theory, people should be using their brains, summing you up and going, okay, who is this NihongoGamer guy? He's not exactly pro level, but he does clearly know how to do some of the moves, so he has like an understanding of the game, but he's not particularly good at the game. I should understand from this that even though he doesn't like it, clearly there are aspects to this game that are deep enough that I would really enjoy it, and maybe in a tournament setting, this game could really flourish. Maybe people should be going through that thought process, but what's actually going to happen because of the imbalance of power that is tilted towards influencers, YouTubers, content creators, people on Twitter, is that most people don't want to spend $60 on a game or $80 on a game. And some of them are, just with the base roster and season 1 pass, they're already over $100. It's like, do I really have the money to invest my 1 year's pocket allowance into this game when my favorite YouTuber is saying this game is like really, really flawed. It's really, really slow. And if this is the future of where fighting games are going, like I can't agree with this. It could very well set that game on a downward spiral that has so that even fewer people are getting into it. And especially with fighting games, like the success of the game isn't just on the quality of the way it's built. Like the success of the game is quite highly reliant upon the way that it is received in the first few weeks. So if, for example, no influencers were allowed to make any videos, like that'll never happen. They'll always just make videos because they have the freedom of the speech to do it. But if influencers were not allowed to talk about a game, and so no negative press could be spread about a game, then it's very possible that even a game that is heavily flawed and really, really slow, and to be honest, objectively speaking, quite boring, people could discover it anyway and discover, wow, it is so broken and ridiculous, I'm having a great time. And so instead of 100 people concurrently playing it, there could be like 500 people concurrently playing it. And then they could send themselves on an upward spiral, if that's a term. I don't know if that's a term. I think what I'm trying to say is that there are many cases where a game or an arcade stick or a gaming laptop or a video game console can fail, not because it died, but because it was killed. I can't remember who the YouTuber was, but like that was every single title of the video. It was just like, such and such game didn't die, it was murdered. And what I want to add to the conversation is that it's not really the influencer's fault. It is because of the influencer that the game can, have a positive reception or a negative reception. And for a fighting game, that's really painful to watch someone with a large amount of influence talk negatively about your game, because you know that if people just didn't say anything negatively about the game, even though it's flawed, it could still succeed and have hundreds of people playing it. And in a way, it's not flawed. Like, people could discover that it's fun even though it is flawed. Or maybe because of those flaws. That's what makes it excellent. Yes, it's because of the influencer, but I don't think it's the influencer's fault. I think it's just the way that society has come to be in this particular time and period. Like 2015 to 2021. Like, okay, I want to know whether to spend my money, and mobile games, I can try anything out I want for free, and it's okay, I've wasted a bit of time, but okay, who cares? Like, I didn't lose any money. When it comes to arcade sticks, when it comes to video game consoles, when it comes to fighting games, a lot of these things still cost so much money to develop, make, risk manufacturing, that they can't afford to offer them for free, right? Some of them are trying free to play, but it hasn't really become like the main way to distribute like a fighting game. And because you need to invest money, people will check out influencers' opinions first. And that's kind of what I would like to see change. I don't think there's a lot I can do about it. Why is it getting so bright? I don't really know what can be done about it on the influencer side, apart from being an influencer and telling you, don't take my word for it. And I don't mean that because I'm trying to be humble. It's just like, oh, you should check out other YouTubers' opinions. I'm saying it because, generally speaking, over the entire world society for the next 5 to 10 years, I would love to see the balance of opinion shift away from influencers, just because it it's kind of disheartening to see things kind of die and fail when maybe they would have had a fighting chance if influencers had less influence. In an ideal situation, I don't want to have to say it like this, and I don't think that all influencers should have to tell you, make up your own mind. But the reality of the situation is, I think a majority of people take the opinions of influencers at face value. So often they skip to the end of the video, check out the opinion, and they don't make up their own mind by watching the video. That is the main reason why I don't tell people when they show up on stream, should I buy blah blah arcade stick? Is this arcade stick worth it? Because if I just give you the end of the video, you miss all of that context. And all of that context is way more important than my final judgment. The final judgment is just, I'm a human. I have my opinions and I'm entitled. I'm entitled to having my own opinion. But the reality of the situation is, by being an influencer, simply having a personal opinion is not, it's no longer a personal opinion anymore. It's like, it's my personal opinion, but it's also going to become everyone else's opinion just because they will take influencers' opinions at face value. So until that reality changes, and I'm positive, I feel like in the future, maybe it will change and maybe we'll be like, okay, look, so-and-so influencer said this about this, but, you know, influencers can say whatever they want. You know, we all know that we should just check out the Metacritics, the spoken reviews, the written reviews. We should try the games out for ourselves. We should get free demos. We should get free trials. We should have free-to-play versions of the game. There are so many ways that the industry can work around the situation so that influencers don't have as much power as they have. But what I really want to say is, I don't think influencers want this much power. I don't want the ability to tell people not to play a game and that game can die. What I really want in an ideal situation, and what I think all influencers want, is to be able to spout my personal opinion and for you to make up your own mind. But that's not what's happening, and for the time being, I don't see that changing too soon. So when people ask me, what's your opinion on this? I usually just say, go and watch the video. It'll take 20 minutes. It'll take 30 minutes. It might take 10 minutes of your time, but the investment is worth it. Not just for me, not just for you, but for the entire environment of these products. Hopefully in the future, we'll reach a point where influencers are allowed to have their personal opinions and can say them safely without the risk of like killing off a game. Because ultimately, of all the influencers I've seen, and even the ones who are very, you know, they got very strong tongues, I don't think any of them want to kill the games that they dislike. Like, they want to be able to hate a game and for it to not really matter, for people to go and buy it anyway if they want to buy it. Ultimately, that won't happen though, because people take opinions at face value. Listen, that's all for today, but I'm curious to know what you think. Do you believe that influencers should be allowed to just say whatever they want? Or do you think they should kind of hold back on their personal opinions and just recognize that they have a large amount of influence, that's not going to change, and that they need to just go easy when they're being harsh on games? Because even if they believe that the game is flawed, for the sake of the game having a fighting chance so that people can, oh, see the pun with the fighting chance, for the game to have a chance at success, maybe they should hold back on their opinions. I'm really curious to hear what you think, because unfortunately, just the way things are, there's too much power passed to influencers, and I think it's a power that influencers don't actually want. We just want to have our personal opinions and for you to judge it like for yourself and make up your own mind. If you've enjoyed this video, check out the playlist. There's tons of while I'm making coffee videos. They're not always super deep topics. Originally, I really just wanted this series to be, I have half an hour free and I'm going to make a coffee anyway, so I'm going to make a video and talk about, you know, some recent stuff that's happened. It's become a heavier and heavier and heavier. It's like every time I make a coffee video, it has to be some deep philosophical thing, but I would like to change it so it goes back to the way it was. Just something happened, I'm going to make a coffee and I'm going to talk about it at the same time. I would like it to be freer like that. Of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel already, hit the subscribe button. You can join us on Discord if you'd like to talk about coffee, all the things that we've talked about lately. I have a special room called Latest Vid Chat, where every time a new video goes live, you can go in there to talk about the most recent video that came on, because usually the comment section in YouTube, it's difficult to have a proper rolling discussion, but on Discord, it's easier to have a conversation about these things. If you're not following me on Twitter, you can follow me over there for free. If you want to follow me on Twitch as well, I'm often live streaming. It took me a little while to get back to normalcy, but I'm back on schedule, I think, to stream fighting games. I often talk about these controllers. If you have a detailed question like, hey, what about this controller? Does it do this thing or does it do that thing? I can answer those questions. If you ask me the question, should I buy this controller? Is this controller worth it? I will just point you to this video. I will give you a link to this exact video and I will tell you to watch it again, or watch it for the first time if you haven't seen it already. That's all for today. I'll see you all in the next NihongoGamer video.